The shuttle doors opened with a soft hiss, and Emma Park took her first step onto orbital station Nexus 7. She was 26 years old, and she was terrified. But she did not let it show on her face. A good soldier never showed fear. A good diplomat showed even less. The station was massive. Emma had seen pictures during her training, but pictures could not capture the true size of this place. The main hall stretched so far that she could not see the end of it. The ceiling rose so high that clouds actually formed near the top. Thousands of beings walked in every direction. Some flew, some floated, some crawled along the walls. None of them were human. Emma adjusted the black band wrapped around her shoulder and chest. The gravity suppression device hummed quietly against her skin. She had worn one since she was 12 years old, ever since humanity made first contact with alien life. Every human who left Earth wore one. It was the law. It was for safety, they said. Her safety. She knew the truth was more complicated than that. A young man walked beside her. His name was David Kim, and he was a xenobiologist. He studied alien life forms. He had been on the station for 2 years already, and he had volunteered to help Emma adjust to her new assignment. "Try not to stare," David whispered. "They find it rude?" Emma almost laughed. She was trying very hard not to stare, but it was difficult. A creature that looked like a giant jellyfish floated past her, its body glowing with soft pink light. Behind it walked something that resembled a praying mantis, except it was 9 feet tall and carried a briefcase made of crystal. "The jellyfish are called the Draenei," David explained quietly. "They communicate through light patterns. Very peaceful. Very old civilization. The big insect is a Morath. They are not peaceful. They come from a warrior culture. Do not make eye contact for too long. They see it as a challenge." Emma nodded and kept walking. Her boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. She noticed that her footsteps were heavier than everyone else's, even though she was smaller than most beings here. The gravity band worked hard to compensate, but it could not hide everything. They passed through a security checkpoint. A bored-looking alien with gray skin and too many eyes scanned Emma's identification. He looked at her for a long moment. "Human?" he said. It was not a question. It was not quite an insult either. It was something in between. "Yes," Emma replied politely. The alien made a sound that might have been a sigh. "Quarters are on level 47. Do not break anything. Humans are always breaking things." David touched her arm gently, guiding her forward before she could respond. "Ignore him. Some species still think of us as children. We have only been part of the galactic community for 15 years. That is nothing to beings who live for centuries." Emma understood. But understanding did not make it easier to accept. Her quarters were small but comfortable. A bed that adjusted to her body shape. A window that looked out into space. A small desk with a computer terminal that could translate any language in the galaxy. She set down her bag and sat on the bed. "Your first meeting with the Trade Council is tomorrow morning," David said. He stood by the door, looking slightly worried. "Ambassador Torm will be there. He is the Valkyrie representative. He is difficult." "Difficult how?" David hesitated. "The Valkyrie are made of living crystal. They are very old, very proud, and very certain that they are superior to everyone else. Torn especially does not like humans. He thinks we are too young, too soft, too fragile." Emma smiled slightly. "I have dealt with difficult people before. Not like this," David warned. "On Earth, you could stand up for yourself. Here, we have to be careful. Humanity is still building relationships. We cannot afford to make enemies." "I understand." David nodded, but he still looked worried. "Get some rest. Tomorrow will be a long day." After he left, Emma stood by the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, very far away, was Earth, her home. A small blue planet that most aliens had never heard of until 15 years ago. She remembered learning about first contact in school. A Valkyrie exploration ship had discovered Earth by accident. They had expected to find primitive life forms. Instead, they found cities, technology, and 7 billion humans. The Valkyrie had been shocked. How had this species developed so quickly? How had they survived on such a dangerous planet? Earth was classified as a death world in galactic surveys. High gravity, extreme temperatures, violent weather, dangerous animals, toxic plants. Most intelligent species evolved on gentle worlds with mild climates and low gravity. Humans had evolved on a planet that seemed designed to kill them. But the galaxy did not see humans as survivors. They saw them as lucky, primitive creatures who had somehow stumbled into civilization despite coming from such a harsh environment. Humans were small, short-lived, and physically unimpressive compared to most alien species. At least, that was what everyone believed. Emma touched the gravity band on her shoulder. The device was warm against her skin. It worked constantly, every second of every day, adjusting her body's interaction with the local gravity field. Without it, she would move differently. She would feel different. She would be different. She thought about what she had been told during her training. The secret that every human diplomat knew. The reason they wore these bands. It was not to protect humans from alien environments. It was to protect aliens from humans. Emma turned away from the window and began to unpack her bag. She folded her clothes neatly. She arranged her personal items on the small shelf. She did everything slowly, carefully, gently. She had learned to move this way since childhood. All humans learned it before going off-world. Control, restraint, softness. These were the words that defined human interaction with the galaxy. Tomorrow, she would meet Ambassador Torn. She would smile politely at his insults. She would move carefully through the station. She would shake hands gently, speak softly, and pretend to be exactly what everyone expected her to be. A fragile creature from a small planet. A primitive being lucky to be here. A weak little human. Emma looked at herself in the mirror. She was not tall. She was not large. She did not have claws or fangs or armored skin. But she had grown up on Earth. She had played sports in full gravity. She had hiked mountains and swam in rough oceans. She had trained with soldiers and learned to fight with her hands and her mind. She was not weak. She was just very, very good at pretending to be. Emma turned off the lights and lay down in her bed. Tomorrow would be a long day indeed. But she was ready. She had been preparing for this her entire life. The stars shone through her window as she closed her eyes. Somewhere on the station, thousands of aliens went about their lives, completely unaware of what humans really were, and Emma planned to keep it that way, for now. 3 weeks passed on orbital station Nexus 7. Emma learned the routines. She attended meetings. She filed reports. She smiled at aliens who looked down at her. She pretended not to hear the whispers that followed her through the corridors. Another human. So small. I heard they only live for 80 years. Like insects. Why do they even bother sending them here? Emma ignored all of it. She had a job to do. Personal feelings did not matter. Only the mission mattered. The Trade Council met every 3 days in a large circular room at the center of the station. Representatives from 40 different species sat in seats arranged around a central platform. The seats were designed to fit every body type. Some were chairs. Some were pools of liquid. Some were just empty spaces where floating beings could hover. Emma sat in the human section with David and 2 other diplomats. Their seats were the smallest in the room. Nobody had made larger ones for them. Nobody thought they needed to. Ambassador Torn sat directly across from them. His crystalline body caught the light and scattered it into rainbows on the walls. He was beautiful in a cold, hard way. He was also cruel in a cold, hard way. In 3 weeks, Emma had never seen him smile. She had never heard him say anything kind. Today's meeting was about a trade dispute. The Marth Collective wanted to increase mining rights in a neutral asteroid belt. The Draenei Consortium disagreed. They said the mining would disturb ancient sites that were sacred to their religion. The argument had been going on for 2 hours. Emma watched quietly. She took notes. She observed the body language of each species. The Marth delegates were getting frustrated. Their mandibles clicked faster when they were angry. Their forearms moved in sharp, jerky motions. One Marth in particular seemed ready to explode. His name was Commander Vex. He was not technically a diplomat. He was a military officer who served as an enforcer for his delegation. His job was to intimidate. He was very good at his job. Vex stood nearly 8 feet tall. His exoskeleton was dark red, almost black. His eyes were compound, made of hundreds of tiny lenses that moved independently. When he looked at you, it felt like being watched by 100 creatures at once. "This discussion is pointless," Vex declared, his voice harsh and clicking. "The Draenei hide behind religion to protect their economic interests. We see through their lies." A Draenei representative pulsed with angry orange light. "We do not lie. The sacred sites contain the memories of our ancestors. Mining would destroy them forever. Then your ancestors should have chosen a better resting place." The room erupted in noise. Various species shouted their opinions. Translator devices struggled to keep up. Ambassador Torn watched with cold amusement. He enjoyed chaos. He enjoyed watching lesser species fight among themselves. Emma leaned toward David. "This is getting out of control." David nodded. "It happens sometimes. The Marth have a temper. Usually someone calms them down before it gets too bad. But today, nobody was calming anyone down." The argument grew louder. Vex stepped away from his delegation seats and walked toward the center platform. His heavy feet made the floor shake slightly with each step. "Perhaps we need to settle this in the traditional Morath way," Vex said. His voice dropped to a dangerous tone. "Combat. Let the strongest side win." "This is a diplomatic station," Torn said smoothly. "We do not allow barbaric practices here." Vex turned his 100 eyes toward the Velkari ambassador. "Then perhaps the Velkari would like to challenge us instead." "No?" He made a sound like grinding rocks. It was Morth laughter. "I thought not. Your people are merchants and politicians. You have forgotten how to fight." Torrens' crystals flickered with irritation, but he said nothing. Vex continued walking around the room, looking at each delegation in turn. "The Draenei are water creatures. They would dry out in minutes. The Farth are too small. The Yenish are too slow." He stopped when he reached the human section. "And the humans—" He leaned down, bringing his massive head close to Emma's face. His breath smelled like metal and something sour. His mandibles clicked inches from her nose. "Humans have no place in these discussions," Vex said slowly, making sure everyone in the room could hear. "Your species contributes nothing. You are prey animals playing at civilization." The room fell silent. Even hostile species rarely spoke so openly. There were rules about diplomatic conduct. There were expectations of basic respect. Vex did not care about rules or expectations. David grabbed Emma's arm. His grip was tight, warning. "Let it go," he whispered. "It's not worth it." Emma said nothing. She kept her face calm. She kept her body still. But inside, something was starting to burn. Vex straightened up and looked around the room. "On my world, creatures like humans are hunted for sport. We chase them through forests. We catch them with our bare hands. We eat them while they still breathe. He turned back to Emma. Perhaps I should show you what real strength looks like. Perhaps I should teach you your place in the galaxy. Emma met his compound eyes. All 100 of them. Commander, she said quietly, I would strongly advise against that. Vex laughed again. That horrible grinding sound filled the room. Other Morths joined in. The sound echoed off the walls. Is that a threat, little mammal? Vex asked. He reached out with one of his forearms and poked Emma's shoulder. Hard. What will you do? Cry? Run away? Beg for mercy? Emma did not move. She did not flinch. She just kept looking into his eyes. It is not a threat, she said. Her voice was still quiet, still calm. It is a warning. Something in her tone made Vex hesitate. Just for a moment. Just a small flicker of doubt in his compound eyes. Then he laughed again and turned away. Warnings from prey. How amusing. He walked back to his delegation's seats. The meeting continued. The argument remained unsolved. Eventually, Torrin called for a break. Everyone would return tomorrow to continue the discussion. David let out a long breath. That was close. I thought you were going to do something stupid. Emma stood up slowly. Her movements were careful, controlled. Not yet. What does that mean? Emma did not answer. She walked out of the meeting room without looking back. Her footsteps were heavy on the metal floor. Heavier than they should have been. David watched her go with growing concern. He had known Emma for 3 weeks. She was professional. She was careful. She followed all the rules, but he had seen something in her eyes just now. Something that scared him a little. He had seen the look of someone who had made a decision. He just hoped it was not a decision that would change everything. Back in her quarters, Emma stood in front of her mirror. She looked at her reflection. She looked at the gravity band on her shoulder. 3 weeks of insults. 3 weeks of being called weak, primitive, worthless. 3 weeks of smiling and nodding and pretending. She was tired of pretending. Tomorrow, she decided. Tomorrow, things would be different. She touched the release mechanism on her gravity band. She had never pressed it off-world before. None of them had. It was forbidden. It was dangerous, but some things were more important than rules. Emma lay down in her bed, but she did not sleep. She stared at the ceiling and thought about Earth. She thought about gravity. She thought about strength. She thought about tomorrow. The next day came too quickly, and not quickly enough. Emma woke before the station's artificial sunrise. She did her morning exercises slowly, feeling every muscle in her body. She had been doing these exercises since she was a child. Push-ups, sit-ups, stretches. On Earth, they felt normal. Here, with the gravity band active, they felt almost too easy. She showered and dressed in her formal diplomatic uniform. Dark blue fabric with silver buttons. The uniform of the United Earth Diplomatic Corps. She looked at herself in the mirror and took a deep breath. Today was the day. David met her outside her quarters. He looked tired. He had probably not slept well either. Are you okay? He asked. After yesterday, I mean? I am fine, Emma said. And she was. She had never felt more fine in her life. They walked to the meeting room together. The corridors were busy with aliens going about their daily routines. A group of Forth scurried past them. They were small creatures, only about 2 feet tall, with soft fur and large eyes. They looked like something between a cat and a mouse. They were engineers, very good with machines. They also never stopped talking. Did you hear about yesterday's meeting? One Forth said to another. Yes, the Morth commander threatened a human. Very scary. Humans are so fragile. I feel sorry for them. Me too, me too. Such a dangerous galaxy for such small creatures. Emma smiled slightly, but said nothing. She kept walking. The meeting room was already half full when they arrived. The Draenei floated in their section, glowing with nervous yellow light. The Morath sat in their seats like statues of angry stone. Ambassador Torn was there too, his crystal body shimmering with anticipation. He loved drama. He would have plenty today. Commander Vex stood at the center platform. He was speaking to a group of Valkyrie aides who looked uncomfortable and frightened. He was telling them about hunts on his homeworld, about prey that screamed as it was caught. He was enjoying their fear. Emma took her seat. David sat beside her. The other human diplomats were not present today. They had been called away for another meeting. It was just Emma and David representing humanity. Good, Emma thought. Fewer questions that way. The meeting began. Ambassador Torren called the session to order. The Draenei representative made a new proposal about the mining dispute. It was a reasonable compromise. Everyone seemed willing to consider it. Everyone except Vex. This compromise is weakness, Vex declared. He stepped onto the central platform, his red-black exoskeleton catching the light. The Morath do not compromise. The Morath take what they want. Commander, please, a senior Morath diplomat said nervously. We should discuss this with our government before. Our government sent me here to protect Morath interests. Vex interrupted. And I will protect them my way. He turned and looked directly at Emma, his 100 eyes focused on her like weapons. Yesterday, the human threatened me, Vex announced to the room. A prey animal threatened a Morath warrior. I have been thinking about this all night. I have decided that such disrespect cannot stand. The room went quiet. Everyone watched. I challenge the human to combat, Vex said. Right here. Right now. Let us settle once and for all which species is superior. David grabbed Emma's arm again. Don't, he whispered urgently. This is insane. He will kill you. Emma gently removed his hand from her arm. She stood up. Emma, no. She walked toward the central platform. Her footsteps echoed in the silent room. Every eye, every sensor, every attention-focusing organ was fixed on her. Vex watched her approach with amusement. So the prey accepts. Good. I promise to make it quick. Emma stepped onto the platform. She was so much smaller than him. Her head barely reached his chest. Standing next to him, she looked like a child next to a monster. Before we begin, Emma said calmly, I want to explain something to everyone in this room. Vex crossed both pairs of arms. Explain what? How to beg? Emma ignored him. She looked around at the assembled delegates. 40 species. Hundreds of individuals. All of them certain they knew what was about to happen. Humans wear gravity suppression bands when we leave Earth, Emma said. Her voice was clear and steady. Most species think we wear them because we are weak. Because Earth's gravity would make us too heavy to function normally. Because we need help just to walk. She touched the black band on her shoulder. That is not true. Emma pressed the release mechanism. The device beeped twice. A small green light turned red. The band powered down with a soft hum, and then everything changed. The effect was instant. Everyone in the room felt it. A pressure in the air. A heaviness that had not been there before. It was like standing next to something massive. Something with its own gravity. Emma's feet pressed into the floor. The metal groaned. Small cracks appeared around her boots. Earth's gravity is 9.8 meters per second squared, Emma continued. She took a step forward. The floor dented beneath her. Commander Vex, your homeworld has a gravity of 4.2, less than half of Earth's. Another step. Another dent. Ambassador Tarn. The Volcari crystal caves have gravity of 3.1. The Drenai ocean moons have 2.8. Emma stopped directly in front of Vex. The massive Morth warrior had backed away without realizing it. His compound eyes were wide with something he had never felt before: fear. Humans do not wear gravity bands because we are weak, Emma said quietly. We wear them because without them, we would destroy everything we touch. She reached out and placed one finger against Vex's chest. Just one finger. Pressed gently, Vex stumbled backward as if he had been shoved by a giant. Our bones are dense, Emma continued, walking toward him. Each step cracked the floor. Our muscles are compressed. We evolved on a world that would crush most of you. Every day on Earth, we carry weight that you cannot imagine. We jump, we run, we fight, all while being pulled down by forces that would kill you in minutes. Vex hit the wall behind him. He had nowhere else to go. His forearms were raised defensively, but they were shaking. Emma stopped inches from his face. She looked up at him. She was still so much smaller, but somehow she seemed like the larger one now. This band does not protect me, Commander, Emma said softly. It protects you. The room was absolutely silent. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. You called humans prey animals, Emma said. You were wrong. On Earth, we are the hunters. We chased animals until they collapsed from exhaustion. We killed creatures 10 times our size with sharpened sticks. We conquered every environment on our planet. Mountains, deserts, oceans, jungles. We survived them all. She leaned closer. We are not prey, Commander. We have never been prey. We are the most dangerous thing to ever leave Earth. She stepped back. Vex slid down the wall, his legs unable to support him. Now, Emma said, turning to face the room. Does anyone else want to challenge humanity's place in this galaxy? Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Emma smiled. It was not a cruel smile. It was almost sad. I did not think so. She walked back to her seat. The floor was ruined behind her. A trail of cracked metal and deep footprints marked her path. David stared at her with his mouth open. He looked like he might faint. Emma sat down and looked at Ambassador Torrin. I believe we were discussing a mining compromise, she said pleasantly. Shall we continue? The silence in the room lasted for a long time. Emma sat in her seat and waited. She had said what needed to be said. Now she would let them process it. Ambassador Torrin was the first to speak. His crystalline body was flickering rapidly between blue and white. This meant he was confused and trying very hard not to show it. This must be some kind of trick, Torrin said. His voice was steady, but his colors betrayed him. Some human technology that creates an illusion. You cannot possibly be that strong. Anna looked at him calmly. It is not a trick, Ambassador. Prove it. Emma considered this for a moment. Then she nodded. Very well. She stood up again and walked to the center of the room. The floor still groaned under her weight. The cracks she had made earlier were spreading slowly outward, like ice breaking on a frozen lake. In the center of the platform was a conference table. It was made of reinforced alloy, designed to withstand almost anything. Morath delegates had hit it in anger before. Valkyrie diplomats had struck it with their crystal fists during heated debates. It had never been damaged. The table weighed about 1,000 pounds in standard station gravity. Emma walked around it slowly, running her fingers along the edge. The metal was cold and solid, real. This table, she said to the room, was designed to be immovable. It is bolted to the floor. The bolts are made of titanium steel alloy. The table itself is 3 inches thick. She gripped the edge with both hands. May I? She asked. No one answered. They were all watching with wide eyes. Some had stopped breathing. Emma pulled. The bolts snapped like they were made of dry wood. The sound was sharp and loud in the quiet room. Pieces of metal flew in different directions. Then she lifted. The massive table rose off the floor. Emma held it over her head with both arms fully extended. She was not shaking. She was not struggling. She looked like she was holding nothing more than a sheet of paper. A young Valkyrie aid made a sound like breaking glass. It was a Valkyrie scream. Emma set the table down gently. It landed with a boom that shook the walls. "That is not a trick," she said. David stood up from his seat. His legs were not entirely steady, but his voice was clear. "I am a xenobiologist," he said to the room. "I study alien life. I have spent 15 years learning about the differences between species. Let me explain what you just saw." He walked to the center platform and stood beside Emma. He was careful not to step on the cracked floor. "Earth is classified as a death world in your galactic surveys." David continued. "This is not an exaggeration. It is a simple fact. Our gravity is 3 to 4 times higher than most civilized worlds. Our weather includes hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions. Our oceans are filled with predators. Our land is covered with poisonous plants and dangerous animals." He paused to let this sink in. Humans evolved on this world. For 200,000 years, we survived everything Earth threw at us. We adapted. We grew stronger. Our bones became dense enough to support our weight in high gravity. Our muscles became powerful enough to chase prey for days without stopping. Our hearts became strong enough to pump blood uphill against constant gravitational pull. A Draenei representative pulsed with curious blue light. "The reports," it said in its translated voice. "The reports about human wars. About human soldiers carrying equipment that would crush our warriors. We thought these were lies." "They were not lies," David said quietly. "If anything, they were understated. But humans are so small," a Forath engineer squeaked from its section. "So fragile looking." "Appearance is not reality," Emma said. She flexed her hand, and the delegates nearest to her flinched at the sound of her knuckles cracking. "On Earth, we learn from childhood to control our strength. We learn to hold eggs without breaking them. We learn to shake hands without crushing fingers. We learn to hug our loved ones without hurting them." She looked at Commander Vex, who was still sitting against the wall where he had collapsed. "That same control comes with us into space. Every human you have ever met has been holding back. Every handshake, every touch, every step. We are constantly, consciously, deliberately gentle." Ambassador Torrens stepped forward. His crystals had stopped flickering. They now glowed with a steady, thoughtful purple. "Why?" he asked. "Why hide this? Why pretend to be weak?" "Because humanity wanted friends, not subjects," Emma replied. "When we first made contact with the galaxy, we had a choice. We could have conquered. With our strength, we could have taken what we wanted by force. Many species have done exactly that throughout galactic history." She shook her head. "But that is not who we are. Or rather, that is not who we want to be anymore. Humans have a violent history. We have fought wars against each other for thousands of years. We have done terrible things. We have learned from those mistakes." She gestured to the room around her. "We wanted to join the galactic community as equals. Not as conquerors. Not as threats. We knew that if we revealed our true capabilities, many species would fear us. They would attack us first to protect themselves. Or they would try to use our strength for their own purposes. Either way, there would be conflict." "So you pretended to be weak," Torrens said slowly. "We pretended to be normal," Emma corrected. "We wore gravity bands. We moved carefully. We spoke softly. We let other species look down on us. We accepted insults and discrimination without fighting back." She turned to face the entire assembly. "For 15 years, every human diplomat, scientist, merchant, and traveler has been hiding in plain sight, holding back, protecting the galaxy from the truth about Earth. A heavy silence fell over the room. Delegates looked at each other nervously. Some looked at the human section with new eyes. The two small seats that had always seemed so insignificant. A senior Morath diplomat stood up slowly. He was older than Vex, with gray patches on his red exoskeleton. He walked to the central platform and stopped in front of Emma. "I am Admiral Korath," he said. "I command the Morath Third Fleet. I have fought in 7 wars. I have killed more enemies than I can count." Emma met his gaze without flinching. "I apologize for Commander Vex's behavior," Korath continued. His voice was rough but sincere. "He is young and foolish. He does not speak for the Morath Collective." Then he did something extraordinary. He lowered his head and exposed his neck. In Morath culture, this was a sign of absolute respect. A gesture that said, "I trust you not to kill me." "Humanity has earned the respect of the Morath," Korath said. "Not through violence, but through restraint. The strength to destroy is common. The strength to hold back is rare." He raised his head and looked Emma in the eye. "We would be honored to call humans our allies." Emma felt something loosen in her chest. Something she had been carrying for 3 weeks. For 15 years. For her whole life. "We would be honored as well," she said. Around the room, other delegates were whispering among themselves. The Draenei glowed with excited colors. The Forath chattered rapidly about physics and biology. Even Ambassador Torn looked thoughtful rather than hostile. The secret was out. After 15 years of hiding, the truth about humanity had finally been revealed, and the galaxy had not exploded into war. Not yet. Anyway, Emma took a deep breath and looked at David. He was smiling, though his eyes were still a little wild. "Well," he said quietly, "that happened." Emma almost laughed. "Yes, it did. What now?" She looked around at the assembly, at the cracked floor, at the broken table, at Commander Vex still slumped against the wall in shock. "Now," she said, "we build a new relationship with the galaxy. An honest one. That sounds complicated." "It will be," Emma agreed. "But it will also be real. No more hiding. No more pretending. Just truth." David nodded slowly. "I can work with that." Emma reached up and touched her gravity band. It was still powered down. She could feel the true weight of her body for the first time in weeks. It felt good. It felt like herself. The days that followed were strange and busy. News of what happened in the meeting room spread across orbital station Nexus 7 within hours. By the next morning, it had reached every corner of the galaxy. Every news network, every diplomatic channel, every gossiping alien and every bar on. Every planet was talking about the same thing. Humans were not weak. Humans had never been weak. Humans had been pretending. Emma found herself at the center of attention she had never wanted. Aliens who had ignored her for 3 weeks suddenly wanted to meet her. They wanted to shake her hand. They wanted to see for themselves if the stories were true. She reactivated her gravity band, of course. Walking around without it would cause too much damage to the station. But everyone knew now. The secret was out. The band was just a courtesy, not a necessity. Ambassador Torn requested a private meeting with her the day after the incident. Emma expected hostility. Instead, she found something else entirely. "I owe you an apology," Torn said. They were sitting in his office. It was a beautiful room filled with crystal sculptures and living light. Everything about it screamed wealth and power. But Torn himself seemed smaller somehow, less certain. "For 3 weeks, I treated you as an inferior," he continued. "I looked down on you. I dismissed your opinions. I assumed that because you were human, you had nothing valuable to offer. Emma nodded but said nothing. I was wrong, Torn admitted. The words seemed to cost him something, not just because of your physical strength. I was wrong because I judged you without knowing you. That is a failure of wisdom, and wisdom is what my people value most. Why are you telling me this? Emma asked. Torrance crystals shifted to a soft green color. It meant honesty, vulnerability. Because I have been alive for 900 years, he said. In all that time, I thought I understood the galaxy. I thought I knew every species, every culture, every secret worth knowing. Yesterday, I learned that I knew nothing. He leaned forward. Your people lived among us for 15 years. You walked in our stations, flew our ships, attended our meetings. You suffered our insults and discrimination. You could have crushed us at any moment, and yet you chose restraint. That is not the behavior of primitive beings. That is the behavior of a wise and disciplined civilization. Emma felt something warm in her chest. Thank you, Ambassador. Please, Torrin said. Call me Torrin. I believe we should start over. As equals, Emma smiled. I would like that. They talked for 2 more hours. About Earth, about Velkari history, about the future of human-Velkari relations. When Emma left his office, she felt lighter than she had in weeks. Similar conversations happened across the station. The Morath Collective formally apologized for Commander Vex's behavior. Vex himself was sent back to his homeworld in disgrace. His career was over. His humiliation would follow him forever. But the Morath did not stop there. Admiral Karath sent an official request to Earth's government. The Morath wanted military cooperation. They wanted to train alongside humans. They wanted to learn how such small creatures could be so strong. The Draenei Consortium withdrew their objections to the mining compromise. They also requested human engineers to help reinforce their underwater colonies. Apparently, structures that could withstand Earth gravity could easily withstand deep ocean pressure. Even the little Farth engineers were excited. They had spent centuries designing technology for low-gravity species. Now they wanted to study human biology. They wanted to understand how evolution could produce such incredible results. David Kim became the most popular xenobiologist in the galaxy overnight. Everyone wanted to hear him explain human physiology. He gave lectures to packed audiences. He wrote papers that were translated into 1,000 alien languages. I never wanted to be famous, he told Emma one evening. They were sitting in the station's observation deck, watching ships come and go. Neither did I, Emma admitted. Do you regret it? Revealing the truth? Emma thought about this for a long moment. She thought about the cracked floor in the meeting room. She thought about Commander Vex's terrified eyes. She thought about Torrin's apology. No, she said finally. I do not regret it, even though everything has changed. Especially because everything has changed. Emma turned to look at him. For 15 years, we lived a lie. We pretended to be something we were not. We let aliens insult us and push us around. We smiled and nodded and hid our true selves. She shook her head. That was no way to build a relationship. Not a real one. Relationships built on lies always fail eventually. The truth would have come out sooner or later. Better now, when we can control how it happens. David nodded slowly. I suppose you are right. Of course I am right. I am a diplomat. Being right is my job. David laughed. It was a good sound. A relieved sound. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars. What happens now? David asked eventually. Now we start over, Emma said. Humanity joins the galactic community properly. Not as pretenders. Not as weaklings. As ourselves. That sounds scary. It is scary, Emma agreed. Some species will fear us now. They will worry that humans will try to conquer them. They will build weapons and defenses against us. There may be conflicts, but there will also be opportunities. Species that respect strength will want to ally with us. Species that need protection will ask for our help. Scientists will want to study us. Engineers will want to learn from us. She smiled. The galaxy is going to be very different from now on. Humanity will have to prove that we can be trusted with our strength. We will have to show that we meant what we said. That we want friends, not subjects. Can we do that? I think so. Humans have made many mistakes in our history. We have done terrible things to each other and to our planet. But we have also learned. We have grown. We are not perfect, but we are trying to be better. She looked out at the stars again. That is all any species can do. Try to be better. Try to learn from mistakes. Try to build something good. David was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You know, for a diplomat, you are surprisingly wise." Emma laughed. "Thank you." I think. They stayed on the observation deck until late into the night. They talked about Earth and the galaxy. They talked about the future and the past. They talked about strength and restraint. They talked about fear and hope dot around them. The station hummed with activity. Aliens of every species went about their lives, but everything was different now. The humans among them were no longer invisible. They were no longer dismissed or ignored dot. They were seen dot. In the weeks that followed, Emma continued her work on the station. She attended meetings and negotiated treaties. She shook hands gently and walked carefully. She wore her gravity band and controlled her strength, but something had changed. When aliens looked at her now, they did not see a fragile creature from a primitive world. They saw a being of tremendous power who chose to be gentle. They saw someone who could destroy them, but did not want to. They saw a human, and somehow, against all odds, that had become something worth being. One evening, Emma received a message from Earth. It was from the President of the United Nations, thanking her for what she had done, for having the courage to reveal the truth, for representing humanity with dignity and wisdom. The message ended with a quote that Emma would remember for the rest of her life. The measure of true strength is not in destruction, but in restraint. You have reminded the galaxy of this truth. You have made us proud to be human. Emma read the message 3 times. Then she saved it and went to bed. Outside her window, the stars shone cold and bright. Somewhere out there, 7 billion humans lived on a small blue planet with heavy gravity and dangerous weather. They went about their daily lives. They worked and played and loved and struggled. They had no idea how strong they really were, but the galaxy knew now, and nothing would ever be the same.